Rural Heritage on RFD TV is brought to you by Rural Heritage Magazine, a bi-monthly magazine featuring articles about farming and logging with draft animal power, small-scale diversified family farming and homesteading, and other aspects of our rich rural heritage. Rural Heritage Magazine, borrowing from yesterday to do the work of today. For subscription information, please call 319-362-3027 or order online at www.ruralheritage.com. Hi, I'm Joe Mishka from Rural Heritage Magazine. Last week, Will Dobkins of Homestead Iron showed us his wide variety of quality garden tools that he makes in his shop in the Ozarks in Missouri. This week, Will takes us behind the scenes to show us the many steps that go into making his quality tools. He uses a combination of old and new techniques to manufacture tools that make gardening a joy. After seeing how it's done, you can see why Will can stand behind his gardening tools with such confidence.
Old tools were designed to function. They weren't, it's designed obsolescence is what's happened to us. They don't care if it works, they don't care if it holds up, they just want you to buy it, break it, throw it away and get another one. Now I got issues with that for a lot of reasons. For one, we owe it to the materials, the resources we're consuming to turn them into good things. It's ridiculous to chop down a big beautiful tree and turn it into trash. Make it into something useful and lasting and purposeful. Like we talked about earlier, I use all kinds of technology, old and new, to make the tools. My goal isn't to be a historian, it's to make the best tools I can possibly make. And in some cases, more modern technology is appropriate for that. But in many, the forging aspect of it, there's really been no improvements on this end of it in several thousand years.
The iron's more consistent.
Well, that is a certainty. We are fortunate in this day and age to have consistent supply, consistent material, and a variety of options of material. I'm also taking advantage of some very high-tech modern materials that the old-timers back in their day would have killed for. There are a few things out there, high-carbon steel, like truck springs and coil springs, are fairly consistent. You can pretty well bet on those being 5160, which is a very good tool steel, makes a good axe, makes a good knife. But rebar, probably get myself in trouble here with other smiths, but railroad spikes, they're really of unknown origin, and it's a lot of work to forge stuff, especially a knife or a cutting tool of any kind. And I think you're money ahead to spend just a little bit of money on to know what kind of material you're dealing with, and put your effort into that, so when you're done, you know what you got. I have nothing against railroad spike knives, don't get me wrong. They're a really cool novelty, and I've seen a lot of really unique ones. But for the amount of effort you put into it, there is better stuff out there. And with our line of tools, I guarantee them for life, so I'm standing behind them. I just wouldn't feel good about using recycled material unless I knew what I needed to do to treat it properly. But a lot of those old ways of doing things have kind of held over, and in blacksmithing especially, they've they've gone round the bend into myth and mysticism, you know, quenching in ox blood or this, that, or the other thing. They've gone beyond reality into a whole nother realm now. But this stuff we're working with right now is just good old hot roll mild steel. It is nice and resilient. It's got a ton of ductility to it.
What?
Ductility, malleability, it's bendable. If you've got enough oomph to bend it, you can just bend it and bend it and bend it, and it really doesn't care. The harder you go, the higher carbon steels. You know, I heat treat stuff like my trowels here. These are ready to be cupped and forged next. But I'll heat treat these to where once I get it in the vise and get it in a bind, I can bring that tip pretty much back to 45 degrees and back the other way several times. And it takes a lot of just going back and forth to get one to snap. Maybe we'll stick one in, we'll get one done here later, and we can kind of show you that in the vise.
Okay.
I just got a really nice email from a lady that bought tools from us in Texas recently. She said that she was hesitant to buy the tools because she was planning on downsizing her garden because her arthritis in her hands just wasn't allowing her to work the way she used to, and she was going to cut back. After she got them home and started using them, this year she's going to make it bigger. And that did me a world of good. I really love to hear that, but it's true. So much of the stuff you find anymore doesn't have an edge on it at all. And even if you put an edge on it, the material under it, backing it up, won't hold it. It's just pot metal. So we use the 1075 for all the cutting tools. It's a high carbon cutlery grade steel, commonly found in springs, machetes and chopping tools, things like that. And we're very happy with it. It's an American made steel, and it does everything we want it to do and then some for our tools. It holds an edge very well. I'm willing to bet better than anything in the business. You know, it's been kind of boiling the frog, if you will. Over time, our quality on this kind of stuff has just steadily declined to the point that nowadays, a lot of people don't know any better. Those are the only tools they've ever worked with or experienced, and I commonly get people come up to the booth and look at my tools and say, wow, that looks like work. And they are definitely right. They're all meat and potato powered. But I can assure you, if it's sharp and it's designed well, if you got to do it anyway, it's less work using a good tool. It's funny. I'll go through dozens and dozens and get them just right, and then occasionally you'll have that one like him that just doesn't want to behave. Let's put some of these in. We'll do some long handle tool shanks in the fly press. 5, we'll do 6 of them. What makes these machines work is inertia and the mass that we've got up here. There's about 12 pounds in each one of these balls, and then this handle itself probably weighs 20-25 pounds. So it's really not a matter of how hard you're pulling on it. You're definitely pulling on it and it's work. How you generate force is by coming up higher and letting it develop more momentum coming down. Take a bigger bite and get more swing, and that's what generates that inertia, puts it into that. You get the mechanical advantage of the screw, and as soon as these get hot, we'll put it to work.
So it's got to big screw and fine threads, is that right?
Right. The big screw, this is a 4 lead-in screw that runs the press. The fine thread over the top of the lead-ins is what you adjust the stop with.
Gotcha.
You know, they've been around for many, many years, but it hasn't been until recently the blacksmiths started picking up on them. I think these started showing up right about the time blacksmithing began to wane. So that connection never really happened until more recently. But now, these old machines that have been sitting in storage or who knows around the world are getting gathered up quickly as people realize the amount of utility you can get out of one. But boy, there's a lot of other things you can do with them. All of this tooling down here are different tools that are made to go in here. This bolt is what holds your tool in, and I've got chasing tools that'll go in there. This is a drift and a punch for making hammers, things like that. Any kind of an eye tool that has a hammer handle type handle in it. You can punch the hole with this or slit through with this and then drift it out with this tool. My touch mark that's on all my long handle tools, that goes in there. We do all the touch marks. It works exceptionally well for that because we can, again, set that stop up and get our touch mark just right. I've got a little bracket here that holds them in place so we know everyone's centered up. This goes down on the bottom. This guy goes like so. And I've made this extension to get outside of the ram. The idea is once you get outside of the ram, you don't have the sides of the machine to contend with. With this and this, set my stop up, I can roll perfect circles cold by hand all day long and be consistent. If I need 4 17-inch wagon tires, I can just roll them right around with this. Just doing small steps. You're just making one tiny bend right after another, but that's what a circle is a whole bunch of small bends lined up. So these are 1/2-inch round bar that we're squaring up and making into long handle tool shanks. I like to do this work in the fly press. For one, I've got the stop up there and I've got real good control of how deep I'm going. And secondly, it's not really a labor saver because this press is work to operate. You gotta put some oomph into it to make it run, but it is different work than at the anvil. So it feels like a break. And then when I come back to the anvil from the press, swinging the hammer feels like a little break again. This is what will be the tang of the tool on the end that drives into the handle. So I square that up back there, and then that gets driven into a round hole. It's an interference fit in the handle. And then all my long handle tools, I drill and rivet them. I'm not a believer in epoxies or things like that. If you want stout and solid, you can't beat a simple mechanical fastener. This is my large trowel. We've welded the blade on, and now we're ready to come back in the forge and cup the trowel. Give it its shape, and then on this same heat, we're going to move quickly to the vise, and we will bend the shank. Do any final last minute adjustments to the blade while it's still movable. So we talked about hammers a little bit, different sizes, shapes. This is technically not a hammer. This is a fuller that's intended to be a struck tool. You would set it down and hold it with one hand, but it has just the right inside curve to do this work. So the grinding is probably one of the least glamorous tasks I do. It's not fun, it takes what it takes. You just got to get in there and eat sparks, but it's one of the most important steps. Having a good sharp edge and the geometry behind it to back it up is really important. So your time at the grinder is it's time to focus and knuckle down. And the trowels are one of the more complicated tools that I grind because they have a rolling edge along a curved surface. So maintaining that same angle, there's a bit of trick involved. So we'll do the primary grind with 36 grit. Move right through it. And then we'll go down to a fine belt. This is 120 ceramic to finish, which I think is pretty appropriate finish-wise for a garden tool. It's not a chef's knife. I don't see any point in honing them finer. They're nice and sharp. They're aggressive when they're done. I do a single step heat treatment and temper in one step. It's the same thing. Basically what I'm doing is I'm going to quench these edges off nice and hard and leave just a little bit of cherry heat here in the center that I will then flow back through the piece, and that will do my temper for me. So it's a process of lighting is super critical for this. When I do my heat treatment, I always have the door closed. I always try to get my light the same so I can see that color. And I'll also, on this first one, will run it over to the wire wheel real fast after I've quenched it and clean this up, so we can see there's an oxide color band that happens at a certain temperature on steel, and I can use that color to determine what temperature I'm reaching where on the piece. I want the edges hard as we can get them, and the center, the spine, to be a little bit softer and a little more spring in it, just to give the whole piece more resilience. That way I get kind of the best of both worlds out of the same piece. Here's our piece. We cleaned up the backside immediately after we came out of the heat treatment with it. That was so we could see this color spectrum. We've got kind of a blue hue all through here. That means this piece has got up to around 850 degrees. As we go farther out, this is more or less unchanged. We've got a little bit of straw and lighter blue up here to the edge. That's a lower temperature. So what this spectrum of color shows us is we have a differential hardness running through the piece, which is exactly what we want. I want it hard and durable out on the edge and fading softly, as this does, into a more ductile, springy, more forgiving material back here. A lot of the stuff going on in my tools is very similar to what you'd see in knives. It's all about using high quality, good high carbon steel, having a good sharp edge, and then the heat treatment is critical to making all that come together and work for us in the end. But this one's all ready to clean up, put a handle on, and it'll look a lot different.
One of my favorite kitchen appliances is my Harvest Right freeze dryer. It preserves perfectly all my wonderful food from the garden and keeps me prepared for that rainy day that inevitably comes. But I also love to make seasonal soups like vegetable soup, leek soup, pumpkin soup, and potato soup. And that's just what I have here. Just spread it on the trays with parchment paper for easy removal, place it in the freeze dryer, and in about 24 hours you will have freeze-dried potato soup that will last 25 years in Mylar bags. I just love it.
Your ancestors preserved and prepared, and now there's a better way. With the Harvest Right Home Freeze Dryer, you can preserve all your favorite foods for up to 25 years. Meats, fruits, vegetables, dairy, and complete meals can be easily freeze-dried right in your home, retaining their original fresh taste and nutrition. To order your Harvest Right Home Freeze Dryer, call us today or visit harvestright.com. Harvest Right. Long live your food.
Hi, I'm Stacy Lynn Harris, and I wanted to show you our hydroponic system. My husband and my family has wanted a hydroponic system for a long time, so my sons and my husband built this for me out of 4x4s and out of sewer pipes, and they have a pump hooked up to a bucket full of water, and it flows constantly throughout these pipes. There's no soil needed in a hydroponic system. And they actually have hydroponic rock that you can get like on Amazon or anything, you know, like that. But you can actually just use lava rock. And that's what we've done. And you just wash the soil off the plant and you leave the roots, you know, in here and have them come through the bottom of the little container. And you put these in it to hold the plant upright. And this is actually moist because of the water going through here and the root system pulling the water up through it. We have a couple of tomatoes and strawberries and lettuce and rosemary, parsley, sage, herbs. There's a lot of things you can't plant really very well or successfully in a hydroponics, at least a system like this. So we do have a soil garden. There are advantages and disadvantages to this system. Mostly there are advantages. The only disadvantage that I can really find is that you can't grow everything in it. But, you know, the thing is that you can grow most everything, and this is what, you know, this is what it looks like. The only disadvantage that I could really think of is that it runs off of electricity, and so, you know, you'll have an electric bill. But I am sure that there's a way that you can hook up a solar panel, and we will be researching that, so make sure you stay in touch and look at my YouTubes and all from now on, because I'll be exploring that. But anyway, this is a plant that's only been in there for about 3 weeks, and it's really ready to be harvested. One of the advantages that I love is that you aren't dealing with dirt. So all I have to do is just to take this plant and, you know, cut it off, take it inside. I'll rinse it off, but I don't have tons of dirt everywhere. And so I love that about that. You can just, another advantage is if you live in a small area, this would work great up on a porch or something where you get enough light, and you can grow these vegetables just right on your porch or on a balcony, you know, an apartment balcony. And so you don't have to have soil. And another thing, speaking of soil sometimes has disease, and that's really what carries the disease and all. And since there's no soil in this, you don't end up with the diseases, and you may not have the right soil type for certain things, and so this obviously is a better choice. So there are lots of advantages to this type of system, and I'm excited to see what all grows well with this. We are actually experimenting with like some cucumbers and squash and different things like that, and I'm going to see how well they do in here, and I'll keep you posted on that. For more information about this, go to gameandgarden.com. I'm Stacy Lynn Harris. Happy planting and happy cooking.
This program is available for purchase. To order your copy, please call 319-362-3027 or visit www.ruralheritage.com. Rural Heritage is a bi-monthly magazine dedicated to draft animal farming and logging, as well as other aspects of our rich rural heritage. It is published by Mishka Press, which also offers a complete line of Back to the Land books, DVDs, and calendars. Call or write for a catalog or subscription information, or visit our website at www.ruralheritage.com.